Hello again. We're back for another in our series of virtual vineyard tours. This week we're traveling through the Yamhill Carlton AVA, and we've got the pleasure of introducing you, as if he needs introduction, to Adam Campbell, who's the head and winemaker, our fearless leader from Elk Cove Vineyard. First, let me show you a little map to reorient everybody on where we are in the northern Willamette Valley. So the Yamhill Carlton American viticultural area is this sort of crab-shaped area. Adam will tell you about the geology and the vineyard and what makes it unique. Goodrich Vineyard is right in the craw of that little crab shape. And with that, let's go to Adam. He's been kind enough to join us on a rainy spring day in the middle of Goodrich Vineyard.
Hey everybody, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Scott and Annie.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm in the middle of Goodrich Vineyard, which is right kind of in the heart of the Yamhill Carlton AVA. And it's a classic kind of site planted on marine sediment soils. And for us, those are really familiar because that's the same soils that my parents planted on up at Elk Cove Vineyards estate property back in the early 70s. We also have a vineyard just about a mile away from here called Mount Richmond, which is a big 200-acre property just to the west of us. So really similar soils to those two sites. And when it came up for sale in 2014, we were fortunate enough to be able to purchase it. Just a little bit about the vineyard and how it's laid out. It's quite a high-density vineyard. It has almost 2,800 vines per acre. So if you can kind of see behind me, these are really narrow rows that we squeeze the tractor down. It makes it a little harder to farm, but we find that the quality, the ability for the plants to kind of compete with each other really gives us these classic small clusters, small berries, things that for Pinot Noir are so important. All the aromatics and color, of course, but even the flavors, it's primarily tied up in the skins. So if we can get a smaller berry and a smaller cluster, it really brings on some intensity and kind of classic, what I consider classic Yamhill Carlton flavors, dark fruits, kind of bigger tannins that we, our job as winemakers is to tame them in the cellar. These are marine sediment soils, sometimes called Willackenzie type soils. There also is a little bit of hazel air as well on this property. I don't know if you could tell behind me, but each of these vines and rows have irrigation tied up in them. And that was something that was put in by the previous folks that planted it. And I think it was a good call. They got a really nice established vineyard through these irrigation. And then our job since 2014 has kind of been to wean them off the water and to get them to dig deep and not need the irrigation. So we've been working on that. I know, Scott and Annie, you worked with this vineyard for a number of years, and when we were fortunate enough to be able to approach purchasing it, I reached out to Scott and Annie and asked them about it. And some of the other folks working with this vineyard were the folks at Soder Vineyard as well as Argyle. There's some really good Chardonnay plantings on this site as well. And that gave me the confidence, nice of our neighbors to be able to give us a read on the quality of this vineyard. And because it's a neighboring vineyard to some of our others, we knew that we could do some good work. One of the things that I learned talking to probably to you, Scott, and maybe some of the other folks was that people had been using Goodrich with some whole cluster elements. So essentially in the fermenter, just putting in, for us, about 80% whole clusters and just enough juice to kind of add enough to the fermenter to be able to pump it over and get some action that way. And we've actually incorporated that. I hadn't been doing a lot of whole cluster on my other sites, but through the confidence I gained from talking to the folks that have worked with this site in the past, we've incorporated it and we've used it in Goodrich for every vintage since.
Yeah, Adam, you've nailed several of the things that I've always enjoyed about the fruit from Goodrich. The small clusters, the intensity with balance. When you showed the pruning there a moment ago, the other thing that tight density requires you to do is that single guyot. So you have, virtually twice as many vines per acre, and each cane is just one side each year of a fruiting cane, further creating that competition and making those. I remember the clusters were always so small, and we enjoyed working with Goodrich Vineyard for a number of years, and thank you for sharing it with us for a couple of years after you bought it for your Elk Cove projects.
Yeah, we're happy to do it. It's really, it's so interesting to see what other people do with vines that you farm. We're at Elk Cove, we're 100% estate grown, so we don't get the opportunity all the time to share in what other vineyards and what other people are doing. But when we do, it can be quite magical.
So what about your philosophy, your culture, if you will, about how you approach Goodrich in particular, or all of your vineyards in general? Is there anything that you think shapes the fruit and the wine because of your culture?
Well, we've had to work on boosting the nitrogen levels in the vineyard. We've always had a strong bias towards growing our own nitrogen in the vineyard. So if you kind of can look behind me, you see vine rows that kind of every other row is planted with a legume crop, which this year is mostly clover and vetch. It's not blooming yet, but when we came on to this vineyard, because of the density of the rows, we were a little bit worried about devigorating the vines too much, especially with our kind of desire to get it off the water and stop using irrigation. So we've tended to till at least every other row and essentially grow legume crops to boost nitrogen in the soils. And I think that's been really good. We tend to get a full canopy, but not have to hedge it more than once. It's a tough vineyard to farm because there are so many vines per acre. It's that many more passes, pruning, suckering, debudding, all the things that we do. Like you, Scott, we're making at least 12 hand passes through vineyards with labor that's getting more and more expensive every year. And I just feel like there's so many more vines per acre, our costs are going to go up here. But if we can get really high quality, to your point about the single guyot pruning, we can essentially put maybe 8 clusters per plant on each of these plants and make a thinning pass down to that 8 clusters. We'll still get close to 3 tons an acre, which is pretty nice. If we can get intensity of fruit and really concentrated single vineyard type material from this vineyard, then it's worth all the extra costs.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to put that in context, 8 clusters per plant. Most, I'd say, average vineyards in the Willamette Valley could be doing 20 to 24 clusters per plant. So that should calibrate you, the viewer, on the amount of intensity per plant per acre to achieve this level of quality. Well, thanks, Adam, for making time. Annie, did you want to talk about the bottling and what we've got going here?
Yes, actually, so this is the second of our 3 vineyard series, and we're turning obviously to the Yamhill Carlton series, and this will include a bottle of Goodrich, a bottle of Atticus, and a bottle of Grand Moraine Chardonnay. So that's the trio coming your way with this next iteration of our virtual packages. So thanks so much again, Adam. Thanks for weathering the rain and the wind out there at Goodrich with us today. And we're so fortunate to share the Willamette Valley wine growing experience with you and your family. Thanks again.
Yeah, stay healthy, everybody. And thanks again, Scott and Annie. I can't wait to give you a hug when I see you in person. Once we're through all this.
Likewise.
Cheers, Annie.
Cheers.
Take care.